The parallels between the Duke of Windsor, formerly King Edward VIII, and Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, are striking, though nuanced by the different eras in which they lived. Both men, members of the British royal family, found themselves at odds with the institution to which they were born, and they both renounced their royal roles in different ways in pursuit of personal happiness and a desire to live more independently of royal duties. However, the outcomes of these decisions have led to a lifelong negotiation with the consequences of stepping away. And Edward VIII's abdication in 1936 to marry Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee, was seen as a dramatic rejection of his royal responsibilities, and he spent the rest of his life in exile, never fully readmitted into the fold, and the bitterness of his exclusion was palpable. And despite his hope that the family would eventually forgive him, he remained an outsider, burdened with proving to the world that his choice was justified. His later life was marked by regret and by a sense of isolation. And a letter has come to light. Anna Pasternak has produced this letter, and it's a sad letter, writing a letter that was dictated from the former king to a person called Mrs. Baraston, who had written a sympathetic letter during the couple's honeymoon in Austria on the 7th of September 1937. "I'm desired by the Duke of Windsor to acknowledge your letter of August the 30th. His Royal Highness thanks you for the poem and your kind wishes, but asks me at the same time to assure you that the information that His Royal Highness is homesick is entirely without foundation. His Royal Highness wishes me to add that, quite apart from rumours in the press, it is not very likely that he would be missing his country, which in every possible way tried to humiliate and misrepresent both himself and the Duchess of Windsor." So it's defiant in a way that we've heard more recently. Harry wants to live in California. Well, he seems very happy when he's with Meghan. When he's on his own, there's a sadness in his eyes. And his exit, commonly referred to as Mexit, refers to, it mirrors the exit of Edward VIII in many ways. His departure from royal life, alongside his wife Meghan Markle, was framed as a break with the constraints and the pressures of being a senior royal, and suddenly there was this concept invented, a working royal, which we'd never really heard before. It's almost a misnomer. It's almost an oxymoron, isn't it? A working royal. Like Edward, Harry has faced a public and a family backlash, particularly in his strained relationships with his brother, Prince William. And while Edward was cut off by both the monarchy and society, Harry too finds himself at a crossroads as he approaches 40, caught between loyalty to his wife and his fractured royal ties, and his struggle to balance personal happiness with the complex realities of his royal heritage and the feeling that he needs to contribute and to do something within in line of the with the sort of stuff that he has done all his life, that he was trained to do, mirrors his great-uncle's emotional exile. Both men seem to harbour some hope for reconciliation. Edward mistakenly believed that he would return to royal duties, and while rumours persist that Harry might seek to repair relationships with his family and do the same sort of thing, particularly with Prince Charles, the reality of such a return remains uncertain. The Iron Curtain that Wallis spoke of of an unyielding division between them and the royal family seems to hang over Harry and Meghan as well, and unreasonably. And despite the centuries separating their stories, the fates of the Duke of Windsor and the Duke of Sussex illustrate the difficulty of leaving a royal life behind. The very identity they seek to escape continues to define them as they negotiate lives in exile, caught between personal freedom and the shadow of their birthright. In both cases, the ongoing need to justify their decisions to the public and perhaps to themselves becomes a significant source of unease and conflict. What remains to be seen is whether Harry will experience the permanent exile that Edward endured, or whether, with the help of potential mediators like Princess Eugenie, he may find a path back towards reconciliation. I hope he will. Only time will tell if history will repeat itself or take a more forgiving turn. But we should learn from history rather than be crushed by the events as they repeat themselves.